Hey, what's up, everybody? Video 44 coming at you with another video. All right, so a couple things going on. Rumor mill. Jimmy Butler. It's been said that the Memphis Grizzlies and the Milwaukee Bucks are in trade negotiations to try to win that deal amongst one another. And it's funny because I don't know if I said this on camera or not, but I thought Memphis probably looked like the team that would be likely to do something like this, because they do have the assets to make a move like that, and they are a win-now team. They didn't get Dorian Finney-Smith, so maybe they try to make a move for somebody else. And when you look at Jimmy Butler's options, I think Memphis kind of makes some sense for his personality, kind of makes some sense for his piece, given the fact that they could use a small forward upgrade. They have a few pieces that maybe Miami would be interested in. I think, from what I understand, that someone said that the trade tracker worked in regards to Trade Machine worked on Marcus Smart, Brandon Clark, Luke Kennard, maybe. I think that can make it happen. So for me, I guess Marcus Smart could be kind of interesting for the Heat. You know what I mean? That could be kind of cool. Have him down there. I think that makes sense for them if he can ever get back into the same shape he was back in Boston. He's had some injuries since then, so I don't know if he's that player anymore, but he does fit that Heat mold. Luke Kennard, a nice little shooter, you know. He can help some, I guess. And Brandon Clark is a player who, if healthy, hell of an offensive rebounder, good forward. So, it's not a blow your socks off type of deal, but maybe if they throw a first rounder in there or something like that, a couple first rounders, whatever, maybe Memphis can make that happen. And then I look at the Milwaukee Bucks. And it's been said that the Milwaukee Bucks have the ability to put Pat Connaughton, who else? Middleton, and I believe it was Bobby Portis could make the numbers work for Jimmy Butler. Now, personally, I don't know about bringing in Middleton if I'm the Miami Heat. That player is kind of over the top at this point. Bobby Portis is probably the player you want of the three. Pat Connaughton, throw in, not really anybody that's too serious. So I kind of like the Memphis deal a little better, depending on the trade equity, the draft equity that the Milwaukee Bucks may be willing to throw in. But I don't think Milwaukee really has picks, to be honest with you. They gave a lot of those up in the Dame Lillard deal. Now, how about Dame Lillard? You know, he wanted to play in Miami. He's a star-level player to keep them in a win-now timeline. He's not going to make up for Jimmy defensively, but he's certainly going to give him pack him a punch offensively. It probably takes some steps backwards defensively, but I don't know why that wouldn't be on the table. Milwaukee is kind of, I guess they've been pretty good. I mean, I don't know. They won the in-season tournament, but I personally think the ceiling ain't on that high with Dame Lillard on the team defensively. Maybe Jimmy Butler is a lateral move if you're the Milwaukee Bucks, and given the fact that his age. It's a little older. Maybe you don't know about that, but I think if I'm Miami, I probably would still have some interest in maybe bringing in Dame Lillard, given the fact that he wanted to go here in the first place. But I don't know if he would still want that if Jimmy's out. He might want to play with Jimmy in Milwaukee at this point. So who knows? Like, whatever the case may be, that's just something that came across my mind. So, yeah, those two teams make sense for Jimmy's timeline. They need to win now. Obviously, Milwaukee is well over the third apron, so that doesn't help them in regards to getting below it. So it's going to be extremely restrictive to try to make a move of any kind. And I think Memphis is probably more likely to be able to make a move. I don't think Memphis would throw in anything better than what I said. I don't think they'd be willing to throw in Desmond Bane or nothing like that. For Jimmy Butler at this age, I just don't think that makes as much sense for the Memphis Grizzlies or Jimmy Butler, who probably would love to have that player on his team. When considering the division around the Memphis Grizzlies. So if I'm Jimmy, I would love to go to Memphis. Milwaukee, I think he would fit depending on what they're letting go of. But I just don't like the package, really, for the Milwaukee Bucks as much as I would say the Memphis package looks a little better. Neither one of them packages blow you away, though. Neither one of them, in my opinion. But I don't think that Jimmy garners that much of a return at this point. Plus, his contract is almost up, so that means you potentially have to re-sign him or get him as a rental. I don't know if that makes a lot of sense for a lot of teams that aren't trying to win absolutely right now. And giving up too much for that type of player at this stage doesn't really make sense for most teams. So that's why I thought Jimmy's options were a little slim. I don't know what the Golden State Warriors may want to throw in. I look at the Los Angeles Clippers. They probably would have some interest as well. But I don't know that they have the packages that can make the numbers work without giving up something that they wouldn't be willing to. But these are just teams that come off the top of my head. LA Lakers as well. But trying to match 42 or 46, whatever the $1 million would be, probably doesn't make sense for the LA Lakers at this point, given the fact that they would have to then re-sign Jimmy to what it is he hopes to get. For which I understand he may be willing to opt out of this deal that's coming up. That he has like $50 million on the deal. It looks likely he opts out of it, which is why he's considered a free agent, even though that option is there. So, yeah, it's for him to opt out of a $50 million deal at 36 years old is crazy to me. I don't think he should actually do that. I do not think the market's going to give him that money, and I think when it comes down to it, you have to be a crazed individual to be in Jimmy's shoes and turn down $50 million at his age. Maybe that's just what he's telling the Miami Heat he's willing to do, but once he gets to another team, I don't know if he's going to feel that way. I'm inclined to believe that based on what it is I'm looking at, that's a bluff. Just like when D'Angelo Russell did it. Everybody was saying, oh, D'Angelo's opting out. No, the hell he's not. Not if he's looking at what I'm looking at. Yeah, he is. Even his representation said it. No, they didn't. And if they did, they jumped too ahead of the game because that's not what the market's going to tell them makes sense. And sure enough, it played out the exact way I thought it would. He opted in, like I told everybody he would. And Jimmy's situation looks just like that, if not worse, because Jimmy has a lot more money on his deal to opt into. So I see him opting into that personally. But it is under the assumption that he's going to stick to his word and opt out. And you never know what players are going to do. But I don't think it's smart for him to opt out yet. And if he thought the market was going to be kind to him, he's going to find out right now, in the trade, that it's unlikely he gets that money. So that's really what it is. I don't think he should do that, and I don't think he will. Not when the time comes. It's not. I don't think he actually does. So that's just my 2 cents. We'll see how it actually plays out. And then the other thing to pay attention to is the Bradley Beal. At this point, Bradley Beal is being said. I don't know how reliable the source is or not. I don't really know. But it's being said that he's willing to waive his no-trade clause to play for 4 teams. The Lakers, the Clippers, and I wish I remembered who the other 2 teams were. I honestly don't remember. And I would be pulling a rabbit out of my hat right now to try to remember what that was. Which is why I left this particular conversation to be second. But the point is, there are certain teams he's willing to go to, and he would be willing to waive his no-trade clause to get there. Here's the problem. Him waiving his no-trade clause for the Suns does nothing about that no-trade clause when he goes to the other team. He still has it. Him being able to waive it does not negate it from his contract. So that means the team that's inheriting it is still getting it. I would need in writing his willingness to waive that no-trade clause for the team that he's going to, if I were the team that's trading for him. I need to know that that no-trade clause is not going to be there when it's time for me to make a trade, send him elsewhere. And that's my problem with Bradley Beal's contract. I would love to have the player Bradley Beal upgrade our team, but I don't want that no-trade clause on our books. We already got one with LeBron James. Why the hell do we need 2? That's a bad look, man. That's a real bad look. So the Lakers are probably out. The Clippers may be willing to do something like that. Take on Bradley Beal for a no-trade clause and maybe move some garbage to get him. But as far as anybody else, I don't know what other team would be willing to do that. Like I said, his production is about as good as a role player's at this point. Maybe you have a couple 30-point games, but you don't expect him to stay healthy long enough to do so. Even when he was in his prime, he was injury-prone. So that the Washington Wizards gave him a no-trade clause was misguided in and of itself. And that no-trade clause is still on his contract is something that is a poison pill for most of the teams that would otherwise acquire. So for me, I'm saying no. I'm not taking on that contract. I respect Bradley Beal as a nice player, but at this stage in his career, his expectations to stay healthy, coupled with the production that he's going to grow into as he grows older, doesn't make any sense for any team anywhere. And unless that no-trade clause is coming off of his contract, I don't see a single team that should be actually willing to take it. I don't think Phoenix is going to move him. I think he's saying he would like to go to those teams, but I don't think he knows how realistic it is not that he ends up on any team. The likelihood that anybody takes on his contract doesn't exist. I think, I'm just being honest with you. I don't think anybody takes on that contract. Because the thing about it is, in order to take on a no-trade clause for what I think is probably a nice starter, or dare I say a bench guy at this point, would be first-round picks. And you know what the Phoenix Suns do not have? First-round picks. They don't even have second-round picks to equate to the number that a first-round pick would be worth. They gave away all their picks in the KD trade and the Bradley Beal trade. So that they were so ridiculous with their assets makes it so that now when they're ready to move stuff, they don't really have the leverage to do so. You could talk about, yeah, I'm willing to waive my no-trade clause, but it's still on your contract. It's still on your contract. So now we're talking about someone not being able to actually make a trade for you that really makes any sense. You're hoping someone's stupid enough to acquire you with a no-trade clause on your contract. That's not realistic. You're asking the Lakers to do that? No. No. That's not realistic. You're asking the Clippers to do that? Maybe. They're dumb enough to hold on to Kawhi Leonard throughout the course of these injuries. They might. Who are the other two teams? I couldn't tell you, but I can promise you, if it's in their best interest to bring on Bradley Beal, they're definitely going to want that no-trade clause off of the contract. So that's really what I'm saying to you guys. I just don't think he gets moved. He's going to be a Phoenix Suns through the trade deadline, in my opinion, and probably through next year, too. Until that contract officially expires, it makes 0 sense to bring him on. 0 sense. For a team that's a contender who wants to win, his production versus that no-trade clause doesn't make any sense for you. For a rebuilding team, that no-trade clause doesn't make any sense for you. It's stuck, man. I'm telling you, that contract is stuck unless somebody's just willing to be stupid. If they're gonna, mistake what it is he can provide to their team and look at him as a star player like he used to be. Even if I'm gonna be that kind of guy who thinks old man A is still a star when he's not, I'm gonna look at old man A's no-trade clause and say, no, there's only like 3 of those in the NBA. And one of them belongs to LeBron James. Bradley Beal, even if I think he's a star, ain't worth no damn no-trade clause. Because we always tell you guys on this channel, if you have a no-trade clause on your books, it's going to affect the other things on your roster, as far as the price tag on the other stuff on your roster. It's a leverage killer, because essentially what I could say is I don't have access to everything on your roster. That's what I could say on the other side of the trade negotiation table. I don't have access to that. So what does that mean? That means I'm going to dock you for the fact that I can't get to something that maybe I can argue I want. It's a leverage play killer. That's what I'm telling people. You don't have the leverage when that thing is there. So even if you're not talking about moving Bradley Beal, I can lowball you for something else that you have on your books because of the presence of that no-trade clause. So that's why I'm like, nah, man, no. You're going to have to find somebody that doesn't understand that dynamic. And unfortunately, it's their job to understand that dynamic. So, yeah, players tend to make mistakes in signing certain things and putting themselves in positions to demand certain things, and they don't realize they're absolutely killing the leverage that they have as it pertains to being able to actually be moved. A guy like Jimmy Butler made it less likely he could get moved by telling everybody he wanted to be moved. Especially in a collective bargaining agreement that puts major restrictions on the teams that ultimately are willing to make moves otherwise. So this is the wrong time to be stumbling into, foregoing leverage or mistakenly thinking that leverage is not a thing to consider. This is the worst time to do that. And because nobody discusses leverage, or a lot of people who discuss this game don't understand the game of leverage and what all has to be accounted for when considering it in this league, people end up thinking things are possible that are not, or end up thinking it's smart to do certain things that are not, end up suggesting things that they're going to ultimately make them feel unhappy later on when it plays itself fully out. Right? That's what my channel is here to try to help people kind of gauge what is good for them and what's not in that regard, because I understand this the way that I do. You don't, as I was saying in my last video, determine when the market is going to give something favorable to you. But you can, within your moment, tell the market that you're willing to overpay for something, so long as it gets done right now. You can definitely do that. But as far as you saying, okay, I want to make a trade today, yeah, you're going to pay for that. You're going to pay for that. That's what we were explaining in the last video. So in this one, I'm telling everybody that a no trade clause is a killer in regards to it ever being a price that anybody would want to play. Not pay, rather pay, but not play. But you're not going to want to pay that price. You're not going to like what you see on your books when that thing is sitting there and somebody's trying to negotiate with you for something that you have. Unless it's attached to a player that legitimately should have a no trade clause, for which would never even be demanded of in the first place, because it's so unlikely that they're going to be somebody that somebody wants. That's the problem. The issue there is, if somebody wants something, how you doing, bro? Nah, bro, I don't have it on me now. But what's one of them situations where it's like, if you truly understand what leverage is, you know better than to ask a team like the Lakers, who doesn't really have a whole lot of picks, who's don't have great contracts and things like that, to try to make a trade for you on a no trade clause when you're not a super duper star like Wemby, super duper star like Steph Curry, of whom both don't have no trade clauses on their contracts. Mind you, the players with the most leverage in the league don't have no trade clauses. So how Bradley Beal was given one is a big mystery to me. Huge mystery to me. So I'm gonna tell y'all like this. If ever there was anything that I think can't get done, that's Bradley Beal determining where he's going. No. Bradley Beal with that no trade clause, putting a list out there saying who he would be willing to waive it for. It's like me slamming my fist into a wall and expecting it to break the wall instead of my hand. No, friend. Nah, you ain't gonna be able to do much of nothing there. Nah. And that's the truth. Where that contract goes is to the person who thinks it makes sense for Bradley Beal to have a no trade clause in the contract. And there is nobody, literally nobody in this league. So Phoenix don't have the leverage to move that thing, whether he says he's willing to waive it or not. What they need to do, what Phoenix actually needs to do, is buy him out if it is at all possible in this collective bargaining agreement, if it is at all possible within the letter of the law. Buy that no trade clause off of his contract. That's what needs to happen. Give him cash to get that crap off of his contract. That's what needs to happen. As long as he has the leverage to negate trades, there should be nobody in their right mind that would actually want him on their team. Period. There's no two ways about that. I don't care what nobody says. I don't care who's saying what. The only person who's going to do that, who's going to take on that contract, is somebody that probably should be fired. The GM that takes on that contract needs to be fired right away. That's the truth. That is absolute truth. So take that for what it's worth, everybody. Bradley Beal is a cool player to have. He's all right. You know what I mean? At this point, you still expect he'll have a couple 30-point games in him. You know, if you keep your expectations low and you have a great team to put him on, he could be a hell of a scorer for that great team. You put him on Boston or something like that as the first guy off the bench, 6th man of the year type guy. He's really capable in that regard of really helping the team. You put him on the Memphis Grizzlies behind Desmond Bane or something like that, whoa. Do you have one of the best scorers coming off the bench? That's who Bradley Beal is about to be right now. That's literally it. That's all, fam. And so if that's the type of piece you need, then that's what you pay him. That's what you have a no trade clause on once you acquire his contract, on that type of piece. By the letter of that logic, Malik Monk should have one. And that kind of player. Give him Malik Monk a no trade clause. That's what we talking about here. Give Peyton Pritchard a no trade clause. That's what we talking about here. Bradley Beal, I'm telling you, man. And if I were Bradley Beal to a point, I would want that crap off my contract too, so I could actually move. Once you come to understand this, it's like, well, damn, this thing don't help me. It's not a no trade clause. It's a no trade period. I can't be moved. Nobody will take this thing. That's the problem. The market will always look at the talent and say whether or not they should have certain leverage that's on the contract. And if they shouldn't have the leverage that's on the contract, then the contract is bad. It's the same thing we say about the Zach LaVine contract. The whole market knows he shouldn't be paid $60 million at year 3 or 4 of his contract, or whatever it is, $55 million, however that thing balloons. So that he signed something like that means that he's stuck wherever that contract is. That's the problem with the Zach LaVine situation too. Once he moves to the next team, that contract is just as stuck there as it's been with Chicago. So one thing you definitely gonna have is security, because ain't nobody moving that contract. The problem is if somebody does find a taker, now you're really stuck at the next place, and that taker is likely somewhere you have no interest in being. Y'all remember when Blake Griffin got traded to the Detroit Pistons and how long he was stuck there? They signed him to that contract with the Clippers, talking about you're going to be our guy, and then moved the contract like 3 months later. Yeah, that's the type of situation that is. So players would be wise to align themselves with the reality of the production they could provide versus how much they shouldn't have souped up on their contract. Because if I know I'm a role player, I don't need to be signing a contract that's meant for Wemby. And if you're greedy like that, then you're going to find yourself in a situation where that contract potentially gets moved to the bottom of the earth. You know what I mean? You're going to be somewhere you definitely would rather not be. Somewhere that likely ain't got no chance of winning, because if they were a team that could win, they wouldn't make decisions to acquire your contract. If they were any good at what they did, they would not be looking for you. And so that's the reality of it. So I just think like teams should be aware of that when they sign guys to bad contracts or potentially bad contracts. I think guys like Austin Reeves got it right. He said, give me a reasonable contract with the best amount of perks on the contract. That way when people look at my contract, they see a good contract. And if for some reason it gets moved, it can likely go to a place that's reasonable, who has the intentions of winning. And not only that, but the existing team that I want to stay on also sees my contract as a good contract, so they probably less likely to move it, less likely to shop it, less likely to see it as something that needs to be moved. You, by way of giving up some of that leverage and balancing out your production versus the amount that you're willing to take, effectively gives you the security of always potentially being in a good situation. Now, that's not a perfect science, and a lot of people will tell you not to leave any money on the table, but if you're not that great of a player, so to speak, and you're taking that great of a player's type money, then you get the dynamic that we already described to you. No good for you. No good for you. So that's really the energy there, man. I think that it's much more likely that the Phoenix Suns are stuck holding that contract. And I know they said, it was one of them situations where this morning it was reported that they were going to bench Bradley Beal and Nurkic for Mason Plumlee, I think, and whoever else is at the shooting guard position. They were going to let those guys start. I guess Nurkic had been missing for the last 4 games with something. Maybe it was his injury or something. And I guess they want to stay with the starting lineup they were using. And meanwhile, Bradley Beal, I guess is what was being said is that they're hoping that they could coerce him into waiving his no-trade clause, since it seems he wants to stay with Phoenix, and Phoenix is ready to move on from him. But, again, being intelligent enough to know that that doesn't really do anything, because now you got to convince another team to take that thing, the contract. Him being willing to waive it is not the biggest part of the problem. It's that anybody else would be willing to take it for anything that's actually worth acquiring. And to be honest with you, like I said, because Phoenix doesn't have any picks, it makes it so that Phoenix can't give up anything that would make it worth it to take on that contract. You see what I'm saying? It does not make any sense at all unless they can find a team that's willing to throw in trade equity in a third 3-team deal situation that would make it so that the team that lands Bradley Beal would be then willing to take the picks and Beal with it. That's how complicated that situation is. Now, is it impossible? I don't think so. You do have to move stuff that you probably don't want to move if you're Phoenix, though, in order to make that happen. Maybe you look at a guy like Ryan Dunn and convince somebody that he's worth a first-round pick. Maybe you take Grayson Allen and convince somebody that he's worth a first-round pick. And you're willing to take back bad contracts that make the thing match, right? Then you send Bradley Beal and the picks you acquire from that situation to the team that ultimately be willing to take Bradley Beal. And then, mind you, you have to make all that line up within the structure of the collective bargaining agreement, which restricts things more so than usual. So it's like, it's not impossible, but it might as well be, essentially what I'm saying. It's about as close to impossible as you're going to find. So what you need is someone stupid, like absolutely stupid. You know, like Minnesota Timberwolves taking on Rudy Gobert for like 5 picks and 3 players stupid. That's how stupid you need that GM to be. like Timberwolves done. That's what you need. You need a Utah Jazz Timberwolves-like situation where the GM just absolutely thinks Bradley Beal is someone he's totally not and is willing to take on all price tags in order to get him on his team. Does that person exist right now? I don't think so. I don't think so. So that's really my point of view, man. I just want people to understand where I'm coming from when I say that. I think Bradley Beal is a decent player to bring on at this point. It's not like he sucks or anything. If his contract were reasonable, just like anybody else, you'd be happy to have him. You know, and that's really what it comes down to. If the contract is good, if the person's good enough to be in the NBA, they're going to be covetable. If the contract's match what they're expected to do, it's going to work out. But if it doesn't, then it's going to be looked at as bad no matter who the player is. You know, that's what it really comes down to. So you judge 2 different things. You judge the contract and you're judging the player. And if one thing doesn't line up with the other, then you got something that's not covetable and ultimately something that you look stupid for taking on. So that's really what it is, man. I don't doubt there's somebody somewhere who will be willing to take first rounders with Bradley Beal. At that point, there's somebody who would do something like that. A win-now team like Milwaukee would love to do something like that. Because they can get that win-now talent and they could effectively put themselves in a position to have trade equity, draft equity, for which they desperately need. A team like the Clippers probably love to do something like that because they need some draft equity. Problem is, as we just said, the Phoenix Suns are a team that doesn't have any. So who needs it more than them? As they'd be giving it away to get rid of a no-trade clause? They're the last team that should be looking to move picks for any reason at this point, so that they would have something that they could acquire picks for, only to find themselves in a situation where they're giving those picks up just to get rid of something that they yesterday coveted. How stupid would they then be for doing that? So that's like, Phoenix, I don't know, man. We said this when they did this, it looked terrible. Them bringing that no trade clause to their books looked bad as it did to me then as it does today. And if I'm being completely honest with you, I was dogging that trade that they made to get Bradley Beal severely when they did it. It was awful to me. And so that any of this is going down this way is, I mean, this is the only way it plays out. It's the only way it was ever going to play out. And as I said then, the best way they're going to be able to create flexibility for themselves is to move move Devin Booker, and also move Kevin Durant for picks and maybe whatever, salary match contracts they can get. Like, that's the path now for Phoenix, is to try to acquire draft equity. Going after a player like, say, Jimmy Butler, it puts a Band-Aid on a gunshot wound, essentially putting them in a position to maybe feel like they're able to win a championship right now, only to suffer the ills of everything they did to put that team together later on. They're going to suck horribly in the future. Unless they can turn second-round picks into Hall of Famers, they ain't got no chance of being any good, at least until 2030-something. At least, unless somebody's dumb enough to actually sign with him. For which, if they follow me, they're not going to be. Because that team don't have a future, nor any way to get you the pieces necessary to make you any good. So only a foolish player of winning standards would sign with a team that doesn't have the equity to surround him with talent. You gotta hope he has bad representation that's feeding him some bull crap. You understand what I'm saying? Or a guy that just loves money as much as Carmelo Anthony did, willing to take money over any success whatsoever. Those are the only type of players that Phoenix is going to be able to sign in that situation. Now, those guys exist, but they ain't going to win nothing with them. Probably do better not signing those people at all and just resetting, like I said. That's the only way this plays out for Phoenix, y'all. And that's why them trying to go after this win now talent crap, man, it's just misguided. But the ownership is new. And as I've said, stupid money is bad for the league, man. Stupid money. When people come into the league, new owners, they don't know what's realistic, but they know they got a lot of money and they just want to throw money around. They don't really care about nothing because they got it to give. Yeah, this ruins the league. It ruins the league. That type of misguided stupidity needs to be phased out of the league. I don't care how much money it has. It's going to tank the team that it has. And just because they have the money to throw away because they're oil rich does not mean that it helps the league that they exist. It doesn't. It doesn't help at all. And so that's what I think of the Phoenix Suns. They dumb money, man. They've been dumb money since they brought that new owner in. They were mad at Sarver, but Sarver wasn't this dumb. No, hell no. He wasn't. He had his own problems, but it wasn't like this. This is like flush the toilet down the future down the toilet type ownership, and double down on that type of stupidity. Like, you know what I mean? That's what they're on. And so, because of it, they don't have any leverage in the trade market at all. They're trying to undo problems that everybody saw was a problem before they even did it. Let's get this Bradley Beal contract off. Let's bench Bradley Beal to make him waive his no trade clause. Now, y'all don't get it. You don't get it. If you got it, you would have never put that crap on your books in the first place. And now you're asking him to do something that ain't going to really help you move him any damn way. He can waive that no trade clause for all 30 teams. Unless he's willing to get that thing off of his contract entirely, then it's equivalent to him having it just the same. That's the problem. That needs to dissolve. Then when his contract is reasonable, then you can start talking about being able to move him to various different teams. Until then, he can waive it all he wants. That crap is still sitting there as GM repellent. BDL 44. I thank you all for watching.